The Buffalo Bills picked up a 9-3 preseason win over the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 2. I'm sharing my top observations from the game today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. That was a lot more fun, despite it being a 9-3 game. That was so much more fun than last week against the Chicago Bears. And this game had some interesting dynamics. Obviously, the rainy conditions before the game, some threats of storms during the game, led to the Bills kind of pivoting from their plan of playing Josh Allen and the starters. They wind up not playing Josh Allen at all. They don't play Terrell Bernard at all. I don't think they play Dalton Kincaid at all. And so that definitely changed some of the opportunity in this game, of course, with Mitch Trubisky running the offense and a lot of different players in the mix on defense. But I thought it was a much better showing overall from the Buffalo Bills, just a much more cohesive team that had a lot more juice and energy, and they were able to get a win. And so we're going to break this game down, not necessarily the results of the game because it's preseason. It's a lot more important to consider the player evaluation perspective. So I'm going to focus the analysis today on each position group and the notable takeaways that I have from watching the game live. And so we'll do that here on this episode. And then, of course, our next episode is going to be the All-22 review. And so on Sunday, I'll spend the day watching the film. And then our next episode will be the All-22 review, where I really break down some of the more nuanced opinions that I'll develop from the game that are different from the live watch. But let's get into those firsthand observations. And I do want to start with the Buffalo Bills on defense, because I thought that was the real story of the game, was this Bills defense and how they were able to really shut down this Steelers offense. The Steelers coming away with 3 total points. Keeping in mind, they've got a quarterback battle going between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They played the entire game, came away with 3 points. The Steelers on offense were 4 of 13 on third down, 0 of 3 on fourth down. So 4 for 16 on possession downs. It's a great job by the Bills defense. Gave up only 219 total yards, under 4 yards per play, 3.8 yards per play. Steelers go 0 for 2 in the red zone. Bills defense collects 7 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Working through the positions, we have to start with linebacker. We have to start with the absolute story of the game, Joe Andreessen. Anybody that watched the game knew that that was the most dynamic player on the field. What a job he did. And, of course, the Bills didn't play Terrell Bernard. Matt Milano's hurt. Balin Spector's hurt. Nicholas Moreau's hurt. And it presented the opportunity for Joe Andreessen to start, and boy, oh boy, did he maximize this opportunity. 12 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, played about 3 quarters. It felt like he was around the ball making plays on just about every defensive snap for the Buffalo Bills. Was fast to flow, confident in what he saw, and he fired his gun and found the football over and over again. You could tell he wasn't going to let this opportunity pass him by. He's going to trust what he saw, and he was going to go. And boy, did he make a ton of plays, whether that was play side or backside. Play side runs, firm, taking on blocks, getting off contact, making physical tackles, pursuing hard from the backside, making plays from a chase position. I mean, the dude was outstanding. You saw 44 flying around making plays. Literally, it felt like every single defensive snap. So good for him. I mean, what a great story. This guy's a tryout player. Doesn't get drafted. It's not even initially a UDFA. He's a tryout guy for the Bills. Signs an undrafted free agent contract. Fast forward a few months, he's running with the starters in a preseason game and making a ton of plays. And so credit to him. Credit to Buffalo Joe. That's what Josh Allen said after the game. That's what they call him, Buffalo Joe. A dude from Western New York that grew up rooting for the Bills, gets an unbelievable opportunity to have a tryout, makes the team, and he is maximizing this chance. You have to love it. You have to love it. And so I feel like this is a big moment for Andreessen in terms of building that resume that's going to force Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott to keep him around. And so I was thinking he was doing enough that made me feel like he was a practice squad guy at least, but these injuries and how he's played, and if he stacks another great performance next week against Carolina on top of this, we're going to be looking at Joe Andreessen a whole lot different, and I think we already are. So tip of the hat to Joe Andreessen for getting a big chance to start and play a ton of football and performing extremely well. Now, we'll do the All-22 review, but, I mean, come on now. That one was easy. That dude was everywhere. Other linebacker notes, Dorian Williams, I felt like he played pretty well. He was a starter alongside Joe Andreessen for this game. A lot of good downhill plays, playing off contact, making physical tackles. He did miss one tackle, but did a good job of kind of slowing up the runner. The pursuit came. I'll be interested in watching the tape and getting a better feel for his coverage reps, but it felt like a good day for Dorian Williams. And then I thought the other linebacker that popped in a good way was Deion Jones. I continue to think he's playing well. And so in a depth role, with the way things are shaping up, Balin Spector once again not available. Nicholas Moreau not available. Deion Jones playing reasonably well without those guys around, I think is putting him in position to make this team. And I have a decent amount of comfort in him as a reserve linebacker on this team. Let's get to a couple of defensive line notes here. At defensive end, for as much as we talk about Joe Andreessen, I think he's story one from this game. I think story number two is Greg Rousseau. That dude dominated the two series that he was on the field. Dominated. I mean, 2.5 sacks, 3 quarterback hits. He wrecked Broderick Jones, a Pittsburgh Steelers right tackle, second-year player, first-round pick last year. Wrecked the guy. Overwhelmed him with power, using his length. And I know that we are hopeful that the big breakout season happens for Greg Rousseau. What's interesting is you acknowledge that he's been a good player, outstanding run defender, has his moments as a pass rusher, but you're looking for him to really just emerge as a big-time impact guy and how much that would mean for the defense. And what he did against Pittsburgh certainly gives you a lot of hope that that's going to happen this year. He was terrific. I thought some of the depth players were pretty good. Kingsley Jonathan. Now, there was one play where he went inside on a rush against Justin Fields, and Justin Fields was able to break contain, and it looked like Kingsley Jonathan was completely gassed trying to pursue the football. But I thought he got better from there. Obviously, on the last drive, the Steelers get the ball down 9-3, have a chance to go win the game. Kingsley Jonathan starts that drive with a sack. That was big. He also had 2 quarterback hits. Javon Solomon with 2 quarterback hits. I thought he had some flashy moments. And I'll tell you what, Casey Toohill, him not being around and Kingsley Jonathan and Javon Solomon looking decent, that's not helping him at all. And Casey Toohill is a veteran player, right? You thought maybe that would help him in this conversation, but he's not been available. He hasn't practiced in a while. He hasn't participated in these preseason games. And because of that, he's really not going to have much of a chance to make this football team. I was pretty underwhelmed with his tape at Washington, but he just feels like he's out of the conversation. I thought the pass rush was really evident early on. And in defense of the Steelers, I mean, Russ Wilson and Justin Fields are not very rhythmic players, right? They hold on to the ball. They invite some chaos. They're not quick decision makers. So they're very what I like to call sackable quarterbacks. But I thought the Bills' defensive ends in particular did their job. A few times maybe breaking contain. I thought Justin Fields with some of his rollout stuff was getting outside the pocket a little more than you'd like. But outside of that, I thought it was a good day for the Bills' defensive ends. Defensive tackles as well. Ed Oliver with that half sack early on. The Bills kind of sent a pressure look, and Ed Oliver got through and made a play behind the line of scrimmage. I thought Austin Johnson was very disruptive in the game. Felt quiet from Dwayne Carter. I was hoping to feel his presence a little bit more. We'll see what the tape has to say there, but didn't feel as obvious as it did last week with Dwayne Carter watching the game live. And then I thought Deshaun Williams, he had a big moment later in the game. He blew up a key run play. It's like a 3rd and short. He blew up the play late in the game to kind of put the Steelers in a 4th and long, and I think they had to settle for a field goal attempt. So some good moments from the Bills' defensive tackles. It felt like maybe they tightened up the rotation just a little bit. Don't feel like I saw nearly as much Gable Steveson late in the game, if at all. Again, we'll check the tape. We'll watch it all, but some flashy moments for the defensive tackles in a game where I felt like the Bills' defense really controlled everything, whether it was run defense, rushing the passer. The defensive production in this game stems from outstanding defensive line play, and then what that opened up for guys like Joe Andreessen and some of the other guys in the back seven. We'll talk about the rest of the back seven, special teams, and quarterback here in the next segment before we do offense, and then a bunch of injury notes later on, so be sure to stick with me. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, folks, welcome back. Let's talk about the rest of the defense here, special teams and quarterbacks in this block. Let's go to the cornerback position. Obviously, the Steelers didn't have much going for them throwing the football, and I think the pass rush plus the back seven played well throughout. Thought early on, Taron Johnson, 3 outstanding open field tackles, click and close, driving the ball, making plays. Daequan Hardy, thought he had some really fun moments on defense. I think he's credited with 2 pass breakups. I'd probably give him credit for 3. Probably should have had a pick as well. Maybe 2 picks. The ball, Justin Fields hung one up there, and he had a chance to pick it off, and he had another chance later on. Thought he was tight in that coverage. The play that Mike Tomlin challenged to George Pickens, being able to carry that route and use the sideline to leverage Pickens on that play and kind of make that a tough situation for him. I thought he played well. Now, he did miss a tackle that led to a long run game, but overall, I thought his coverage was good. We'll talk about the special teams version in a moment, but some good plays in the ball for Daequan Hardy, continuing to play as a true outside corner. I thought Kyron Brown got cooked on that one play. Justin Fields had a post middle of the field wide open. I mean, wide open. Kyron Brown got absolutely cooked on that play. I thought Kyer Elam had a good run stop. He almost had a pick just before the half. I thought it was a good risk. He kind of drove on the ball, was going to break on it, and the ball winds up actually getting by him for a short completion. But I thought in that situation, it was a good gamble to kind of drive on that ball, knowing that if you missed, he's tight up against the sideline, he's going to go out of bounds. But I thought he played confident. And then also early on in the game, Christian Benford had a pass breakup driving on a ball and had another strong tackle on a 3rd down to force a punt. So some nice standout moments from your Bills cornerbacks. Moving on to the safety position, no Damar Hamlin for this game. So the starting safeties were Taylor Rapp and Cam Lewis. Not really sure what the extent of what's going on with Damar Hamlin is, but come on now. I mean, you're talking about your three guys, Cole Bishop, Mike Edwards, and Damar Hamlin, as the running mate for Taylor Rapp, and like none of them were able to play in this game. Now, obviously, it could be very much cautionary with Damar Hamlin, but as I say repeatedly, because it happens repeatedly, the Bills and compounding injuries at the same position is just insane. Kendall Williamson is an absolute adventure. I feel like he giveth and taketh away. He's a highly inconsistent player. Not that you expect him to not be, but he's kind of on the field in some bigger moments, and you could just kind of tell he's a vulnerable player. But safeties are tough. Safeties are probably the toughest position outside of maybe interior offensive line to have firm takeaways from watching a live broadcast. I mean, most of the time safeties aren't even on the screen. So excited to kind of dig into the tape and see what comes away there. It felt like Kareem Jackson was getting some earlier run, which is to be expected under these circumstances, but I kind of want to get a feel for where he's at as well. Special teams, I think there's some good things to say here. Tyler Bass goes 3 for 3. Now, look, I know that those field goals were all chip shots. I think the long was 31. The other two inside 30 yards. So, boy, oh, boy, you need to be able to make those. But he made them, right? So that's good. He made all 3 of his kicks. I think he scored, all the points so far for the Bills in the preseason. He's got 15 points scored and no other points. So maybe the Bills will score a touchdown next week. But Tyler Bass goes 3 for 3. I thought Sam Martin was terrific in this game, had 5 punts. I thought he was really good. High-hanging punts over and over again. That's what you're looking for out of your punter. I thought he did that. I thought the coverage units were pretty strong for the most part. And then when it comes to the punt return situation, which I find to be the most interesting, Daequan Hardy got all the opportunities. Winds up having 5 punt returns for 63 yards, including a 31-yarder. What I liked about Daequan Hardy, is that he cleanly fielded the ball. And he looked confident catching punts, which I like. I would say that he had some questionable decisions on, deep kicks that were kind of getting around the 5-yard line that it feels like if it hits the ground, it's going to be a touchback. He winds up taking the ball and returning it. And you can make the case that perhaps Clay Johnson, the Steelers punter, outkicked his coverage, and so it's a good opportunity to take it. You could also maybe make a case of the Bills coaching staff is saying, hey, return the ball. We want to kind of see what type of skill you have. But at the same time, I think at least three or four of those punt returns were kind of questionable decisions to return the ball. So he's definitely aggressive. I think that's a mindset that you like, but you want him to make smart, right decisions as well. So at least he took care of the ball. And on one of those punt returns, he held on to the ball through a very tough physical tackle where it felt like the guy tackling him had some pressure on the ball as well. So it was good to see him hang on through that. So I thought it was a pretty good day overall for the special teams. Andy Isabella on these kick returns, I don't think he has much. I continue to think with these kick returns, like you have to be able to break a tackle. Your ability to break a tackle is so important. And I just don't know that these little punt returners are going to be able to do that. I'd be putting Ty Johnson back there. That'd be my number one guy handling those kick returns. And maybe that'll happen once the season starts, because I feel like these plays just require contact balance and ability to break a tackle. And Andy Isabella's not going to do that. So he's kind of getting the bad end of some of these tackle attempts. And so I kind of feel bad for him. Let's talk quarterbacks here quickly. Obviously no Josh Allen. And boy, did that impact the offense. You would expect it to, but Mitch Trubisky's rough, right? Like, just when you watch him play, everything is hard for him. I think he just processes so slowly. He's so slow to pull the trigger. He wants everything to be declared as open, and then even then, he's not even accurate with his throws. Throws are late. He had 2 crazy bad turndowns. One, he was hot. Right? The Steelers sent pressure. He's got James Cook wide open in the flat. He winds up eating the ball and taking a sack. And then another on an RPO. Decision-making, late decisions, not taking care of the ball. I mean, he's tough to watch. Very tough to watch. He goes 9 of 13 for 86 yards and an interception, and it felt worse than that. Ben DiNucci comes in. What do you practice, like twice with the team, maybe. So what can you really expect? He comes in, he goes 3 of 5 for 20 yards. You could tell there's just not much that he's able to operate doing. I thought the best thing he did was he took the sack on the third down. There's a rollout pass. The Bills are to get a first down. They win the game. The one thing you don't want to do is throw incomplete. I thought he did a great job taking the sack and not throwing incomplete, but what could you possibly expect for him? So the unsettling thing about this whole conversation is that each of the last 2 years, the NFL has used more starting quarterbacks than ever, like a record-breaking number of starting quarterbacks, more than 2 per team. Meanwhile, Josh Allen's been the most durable quarterback in the NFL by far. I hope the Bills don't have to use quarterback depth, especially because it's these guys. But it's hard to have any comfort in these players. And obviously, Mitch Trubisky has a knee injury, so you don't even know what the severity is there. So we'll see. The Bills might be needing to scour the waiver wire. Like once cuts happen, if a Kyle Allen comes free, if a Case Keenum comes free, which I think is totally possible in both instances, I'd be looking into that. I would be looking into that for sure. I know that everyone wants to bring up the name Ryan Tannehill. The thing about Ryan Tannehill is I don't think he wants to go be Josh Allen's backup. I think Ryan Tannehill's waiting for some starter to go down and get that opportunity. So you can pound the table for that, but Ryan Tannehill probably has options. And being the backup quarterback for the most durable quarterback in the NFL is probably not high on his list of things to do. So there's that. Rough day for quarterbacks, but what could you expect? Well, I guess you could expect Trubisky to play better, but somehow I feel like throughout Mitch Trubisky's career, he's getting worse. And I think that probably stems from, he's had stretches of good play in his career, but when you make the amount of mistakes Trubisky has, you're probably a little gun shy. And he's just not playing free. He's not playing instinctively. And it's almost like he's afraid to make a mistake. And you just can't play quarterback that way. You have to have some appetite for risk. You got to be able to read it and rip it and be confident. I say it all the time, like the common denominator in any professional sport, the best athletes in the world are the ones that are the most confident. And do you watch Trubisky and feel like he has an ounce of confidence? I don't. So we'll see how that all unfolds and what happens with quarterback depth. Hopefully the only reason we need to see a backup quarterback play is because the Bills are blowing out the opponent and they got to do some kneel downs or hand the ball off to somebody late in the game. But these backup quarterbacks are rough. All right, we're going to talk about the rest of the offense on the other side of it in addition to injuries. And there's unfortunately quite a bit to get into there, so be sure to stick with me. You've heard us talk all about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of Sunday Ticket, NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to catch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, folks, welcome back. As I've teased a few times, our next episode will be the All-22 review, where I study the tape and we do an episode on that. But also as part of that, I put together All-22 film reels where I do voiceover analysis for the plays on offense and defense that stand out to me. And I send that to everybody in our Locked On Bills subtext community. So I'd invite you to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. There's a lot that you get with it. You get one-on-one texting with me. So if you have a question about the Bills at any time, you can send me a text message. I also send out my first reaction to all major Bills news. So I'm going to keep you posted through text messages with Bills news and my first reaction to all of it. You get my in-game text. So during the Bills Steelers game, I send out a text after every single drive, letting people know what my thoughts are. And you get access to our Discord channel, which now has over 800 Bills fans in there talking Bills, Sabres, what we're grilling on the weekend. We're having a lot of fun in there. So come be part of it. The Locked On Bills subtext community. I'd love for you to be there. There's a link in today's show notes. So if you're on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast, click on the show notes and join the Locked On Bills subtext community and get in on all the fun that we're having over there. I love connecting with people that consume this podcast, and this is just a great way for us to do that and build some community. Other people that listen to this podcast, are being able to connect with them in the Discord. I think you'd really enjoy the discussion of people that enjoy the podcast. I think there's a like-mindedness that comes with people that would want to hear analysis like I have on the Bills, and the most devoted listeners are in that Discord channel. So come be part of it. Link in today's show notes to be part of the Locked On Bills subtext community. All right, let's get into it. The offensive line. Again, one thing I'd say about the offensive line, and if you remember what I said about the offensive line coming out of the All-22 analysis last week, I feel like what we saw today very much validated how I felt about that tape, where it's preseason game one, just timing stuff, a lot of looks that maybe the Bills weren't ready to deal with. And this offensive line performance was just much more cohesive in the run game. They created a lot of displacement. And obviously the Bills ran the ball extremely well. The Bills running backs, 30 carries for 160 yards, over 5 yards per pop. And that's 5 different guys factoring into that had at least, well, I guess Ty Johnson had 1 carry, but everyone else had at least 6. I think this Bills offensive line was ready for this moment. I think they took it personal, kind of the results last week, and they played extremely well. Now, there wasn't without some lowlights. I mean, I thought individually there were some L's that affected plays by David Edwards, by Osiris Torrance. Vandemark had one. Andreessen had one. But collectively, very, very strong. I thought the biggest warp was probably Mike Edwards with that false start late in the game. Can't have that. That put the Bills, they were 2nd and 3. They go from 2nd and 3 to false start. They're probably going to get first down to close out the game. Then they go back 5 yards, and they couldn't get much going from there and wound up having to punt the ball back to the Steelers. And I thought that was really derailed because of that false start by Mike Edwards. In terms of the depth, La'el Collins continues to play guard exclusively. No tackle reps that I saw, which I think is important because I don't feel like Collins has the movement skills right now to play tackle, but he does have some life at guard. And then I thought was interesting, Tylen Grable, Ryan Vandemark continue to be your backup tackles. But this week, Grable started off as the left tackle and Vandemark the right tackle. So you can see kind of a flip of last week, giving both of those guys chances to play on either side of the line. The tape will tell me more there. I tried to pay attention to Cedric Van Granger when he came in late, and I thought he had some good run blocks, but we'll have more to say after we watch the tape. At running back, I mean, obviously we talked about it. They ran the ball 30 carries for 160 yards, over 5 yards per pop. They all played well. James Cook, 6 for 25. Ray Davis, 8 for 58. How fun was he to watch, right? Like, I love his style. Just get the ball and go. And sometimes I'm critical of James Cook for just being a little calculated. Sometimes you got to just stick it in there and just be willing to embrace some contact and some physicality. And James Cook I call him Twinkle Toes sometimes, and I think he deserves that. But Ray Davis, get the ball, go. I love the dense frame that he has, that low center of gravity that helps him, win through contact, shaking off tackles, guys falling off of his thighs, guys falling off of his ankles. I really enjoyed Ray Davis in this game. And I thought, he had that one explosive run that was called back because of a Trey McKitty hold. He could have had even more than 8 for 58. Darrington Evans, 7 for 37. Frank Gore Jr., 8 for 41. Ty Johnson, 1 for 6. I thought they all played well. They all had, convictions in how they were running. They were playing confident, running to daylight, being physical. It was a good rushing performance. It was good to see Ty Johnson back on the field, even 1 carry for 6 yards, but you could feel his competitive spirit when he ran the ball. I do think it's notable that Darrington Evans continues to get opportunity ahead of Frank Gore. So Frank Gore's been fine, and I'm not trying to diminish him. I just feel like there's a lot of fans out there, a lot of fans for Frank Gore, and I want you to get your expectations calibrated because the Bills are very clearly telling you that he's like the 5th running back and that Darrington Evans is the 4. So he's going to need help to make this roster, although he's playing well in the preseason. At tight end, no Dalton Kincaid, Quentin Morris, Dawson Knox got your 12 personnel looks with the starters. I think the Bills continue to tell you very clearly that Quentin Morris is ahead of Zach Davidson on the depth chart. So for all the hype that existed with Zach Davidson through camp, and he even had a great catch in this game, 27-yard catch, beat the safety on a corner route. It was the most explosive passing play in the game for either team. Morris is ahead of him, and you saw that he made an impact on special teams. He can block, and Quentin Morris had a couple of catches himself. And Dawson Knox had a catch in this game, and that was good to see because I know he's missed some practice time this week with a number of different injury designations. So good to see him available for this game. And wide receiver, not a whole lot to glean, right? There was only 7 total catches by wide receivers. The Bills had 78 total passing yards. Remember, 27 of those came on one play. So there's not a whole lot to say about wide receivers. I will make 2 comments, one on Keon Coleman, the other on Justin Shorter. Keon Coleman, and it was Trubisky throwing the ball. Saw that soft corner, threw the ball real quick on a stop route, had a 12-yard catch and run. That was a good play. But the red zone target, he alligator armed that ball. Like, he needed to stick his hands out, pluck the ball, and score a touchdown. And he short-armed it. And I think he knew that safety was over top. He didn't want the smoke, and he got short-armed, and he should have caught a touchdown pass. So now that's 3 red zone targets in the preseason for Keon Coleman, where twice he couldn't uncover, and now this time he got, he short-armed a ball and should have caught the pass and scored a touchdown. So that's pretty discouraging to me. Justin Shorter got a red zone target as well, and obviously the ball was underthrown, but when the ball's underthrown on a fade route like that and you're a big, muscular, 6'2", 225-pound receiver, whatever he is, come back and play through the corner, force the flag, and set the team up with a 1st and goal from the 1. Don't sit there and, the corner didn't even get the head around, but because Justin Shorter didn't make a play on the ball, incomplete, and got to settle for a field goal. Like, play through that. Come back down. So I thought those were a couple of discouraging reps in the red zone for bigger-bodied guys. And that's why I just, I don't know, miss me with the idea that bigger-bodied receivers are red zone threats. Being able to create space matters the most, even in the red zone. All right, so that's it for wide receiver. Injuries. Not good, folks. Marquez Valdes-Scantling did not finish the game, had a neck injury, was down for a while, and winds up not being able to finish the game, neck injury. Mitchell Trubisky, knee injury. And I know you're probably thinking, who cares? Mitch Trubisky stinks. Well, right now he's QB2, and you don't want the Bills in a position where neither of the backup quarterbacks that they started this offseason with are going to be available. So hopefully Mitch Trubisky's healthy. I know that would be helpful. Austin Johnson had a calf injury. He didn't finish the game. Quentin Morris had a shoulder injury. He couldn't finish the game. And Javon Solomon had a calf injury. He couldn't finish the game. So let's hope that these are all a bunch of nothing burgers. Otherwise, the list just continues to get longer. So you have it, folks. Some instant reaction to the Bills' preseason win over the Steelers. Looking forward to diving into the tape and breaking that down for you on our next conversation. Would love you to join the Locked On Bills subtext community. Link in today's show notes as a reminder. I'd also love for you to rate, review, share, and subscribe to the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills! And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.